Hi, in this video, we will look at how we go about factoring quadratic expressions. So what is a quadratic expression? A quadratic expression consists of three terms where the highest exponent is 2. Quadratic expressions are usually written in the following way: ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is the coefficient of the x squared term, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant. Now please remember that a quadratic expression must have at least one term with an exponent of 2. Let's look at the expression 5x to the power of 3 plus 6x plus 2. This is not a quadratic expression because the exponent of 3 is too high. What about 5x plus 6x plus 2? This is also not a quadratic because there is no exponent of 2. So this is our quadratic, 5x squared plus 6x plus 2. You will see different types of quadratic equations, so we will break these up into sections. Let's start with how we go about factorizing a simple quadratic expression. When we looked at simplification, we looked at an expression like this. To multiply these binomials, we used the FOIL method. Then we added like terms, and we got an answer like this. We expanded the brackets and got a quadratic expression as our answer. Now we'll be given a quadratic and we'll need to factorize into two brackets. Let's look at an example. X squared plus 3x plus 2. We start with two brackets that contain two terms. One term with an x and one with a constant. When you multiply the first term in the first bracket with the first term in the second bracket, your answer must be the first term of the quadratic. When a is 1, the first term in the quadratic is simply x squared, and we can see it up here. So the only two terms that can be multiplied together to give us x squared are x and x. So we know that x is the first term in each bracket. The second term in each bracket must be a constant. The constants must have the following characteristics. When added together, they must give us the coefficient of the x term, which will be the 3 up here. But when multiplied together, they must give us the constant term of the quadratic. That is our c term over here. 2 only has two factors, 1 and 2. 1 multiplied by 2 gives us 2. 1 plus 2 gives us 3, which is the coefficient of the x term here. So we can see the constant in the brackets will be 1 and 2. And our brackets will look like this. Before we carry on, I want to go back and look at what happens when we multiply positive and negative numbers. 3 multiplied by 4 gives us 12. 3 and 4 are both positive. I love to love you, therefore I love you. Negative 3 multiplied by negative 4 also gives us 12. Two negative numbers also give us a positive answer. I hate to hate you, therefore I love you. If you multiply two positive numbers or two negative numbers, you will always get a positive answer. Now let's look at negative 3 multiplied by positive 4, and we get negative 12. I hate to love you, therefore I hate you. What about positive 3 multiplied by negative 4? Also gives us negative 12. I love to hate you, therefore I hate you. If we multiply a positive number and a negative number, you will always get a negative answer. Now let's look at what happens when we add these numbers together. 3 plus 4 gives us 7. Negative 3 minus 4 gives us negative 7. Negative 3 plus 4 gives us 1. And 3 plus negative 4, which becomes 3 minus 4, gives us negative 1. Let's make some space. Now, earlier we said that a quadratic expression takes on the format ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, it is very rare that a, the coefficient of x squared, will be negative, but b and c can be positive or negative. So we can actually rewrite this equation like this. ax squared plus or minus bx plus or minus c. Just as the actual values in the equation are important, the operations, the plus and minus signs, are just as important. Let's look at an expression where c is positive. We have just seen that if you multiply two positive values, you will get a positive answer. But if you multiply two negative values together, you will also get a positive answer. If your constant c in the quadratic is positive, then the constant in the bracket will both be positive or both be negative. But how do we know which to use? We need to look at the sign before b, which is the coefficient of x. If the coefficient of the middle term is positive, then both factors will be positive. If the coefficient of the middle term is negative, then both factors will be negative. Let's look at an example. Factorize the following expression, x squared plus 7x plus 6. We are factorizing a quadratic, so let's start by putting in our two brackets. We have said before that the first term in each bracket is the square root of x squared. So we put in an x over here, and we put in an x over here. 6 is our constant, so we need two numbers when multiplied together that will give us 6. So let's find the factors of 6. We have 1 and 6, and we have 2 and 3. 6 is positive, which means both of our factors will be positive or both of our factors will be negative. But which one is it? How do we tell? Well, we look at the value of b. This is the coefficient of x in your quadratic. It is positive 7. This tells us that both factors will be positive. So we can say positive 1 plus 6, and we get 7. Positive 2 plus 3, and we get 5. From this, we can see the factors 1 and 6, when added together, give us 7. So these will become the constants in the bracket, and our brackets will look like this. Let's do another example. Factorize the following expression, x squared minus 6x plus 8. Once again, let's put in our brackets. The first term in our bracket is the square root of x squared. So we can put x over here, and we can put x over here. The second terms in each bracket must be the factors of 8. So let's find the factors of 8. We have 1 and 8, and we have 2 and 4. 8 is positive, so our factors will be both positive or both negative. But again, which one is it? So let's look at our b value. b is negative 6, so we know that both our factors will be negative. So we can say negative 1 minus 8 gives us negative 9. Negative 2 minus 4 gives us negative 6, which is the coefficient of x. It is our b value. This means that negative 2 and negative 4 will be our constants in the bracket, and our bracket will look like this. Next, let's see what happens when c is negative. So we can write our expression as ax squared plus or minus bx minus c. We know that when we multiply a negative number with a positive number, we will get a negative answer. So if c is negative, one of its factors has to be negative too. But how do we tell which factor is positive and which is negative? We look at the sign before b. If the coefficient of the middle term is positive, the smaller factor will be negative. But if the coefficient of the middle term is negative, the larger factor will be negative. Let's look at an example. Factorize the following expression, x squared plus x minus 12. Let's put in our brackets. The first term is the square root of x squared. So we have x over here and x over here. Our constant c is negative 12. So let's find the factors of 12. We have 1 and 12. We have 2 and 6. And we have 3 and 4. One of these factors will be negative. But which one? Let's look at our x term. Here we have positive x, so b is positive 1. That tells us that the smaller factor is negative. So we're going to have negative 1 plus 12, which gives us positive 11. Negative 2 plus 6 gives us positive 4. Negative 3 plus 4 gives us positive 1. This is our b value, which means the constants in the brackets are negative 3 and 4. And our bracket will look like this. Let's do one more example. Factorize the following expression: x squared minus 4x minus 21. Let's put in our brackets. Let's fill in our x terms. Now we need to find our constants. Our constant value c is negative 21. So let's find the factors of 21. We have 1 and 21, and 3 and 7. Which is positive, which is negative? Let's look at our b value, which is the coefficient of x, which is negative 4. We have a negative b value, so the larger factor will be negative. So we're going to have positive 1 minus 21, which gives us negative 20. Positive 3 minus 7, which gives us negative 4. This is our b value. That means the constants within the bracket will be 3 and negative 7. And our bracket will look like this. Please work through the exercises before we move on to the next group of quadratics.